So my daughter is now also 9, but when she was 8 years old, I practiced this quote by Teddy Roosevelt called "Man in the Arena," and it goes something like this. And my daughter, just one night, apparently I practiced it enough. My daughter one night just like broke it out at the dinner table, and I swear I did not practice it in front of her, not even once. But it goes something like this: the poorest way to face a life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride in cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to the criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief to all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort where, even if he fails, comes the second achievement. It isn't the critic who counts. It isn't the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives gallantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement, and at worst, even if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his fate shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Now again, that was Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena, and my daughter is required to say it every day that we go to school. Now she gets in the car, she's a little more rebellious, she's 9. And she's like, "No, Dad, I don't want to do it." I'm like, "Let's go, Emily, we're doing it. Let's go." So the reason that I've got her like wanting to do it more, because I told her my goal is to be speaking on stage, and when I get to that part of the keynote that I generally give, is to call her up on stage to say it with me. And we would say it like, I will start, "The poorest way to face life," and she would go, "Is to face it with a sneer." And kind of go from there. And so part of parenting is leadership. Most people don't think of parenting that way. Being in a relationship, dating, marriage, whatever it is, it's all leadership. And the things I'm going to talk about today can apply to every single thing that you do in your life. It does not matter if you run a Fortune 500 company, you're a solopreneur, it doesn't matter. Everything that I'm going to talk about today, these lessons, these secrets, these principles, whatever you want to call them, apply to everything that you do in your life. So a little bit about me. Oh, first of all, could you guys pull out your phone and scan this QR code? If you've done it before, humor me and do it again. You're going to get the same email from me, but I would like to share this brief with you, and you'll see why in just a minute. And when you get the email from me, if you wouldn't mind replying and saying, "Hey, please send me the brief," that would be awesome. Okay, so a little about me. Some of you have heard me speak before, some have not. So I spent 26 years in the SEAL teams. Actually, 23 of my 26 years in the Navy, I was in the SEAL teams. The first 3 years, I made some tactical errors. It cost me some time in the SEAL teams, but whatever, it was part of the process of me getting to where I wanted to be. So I had to make some, like I said, I made some errors. I had to make some sacrifices along the way, and to get where I wanted to be. I had to break some rules or bend some rules, break the chain of command a little bit to get there. But at the end of the day, I finally got to SEAL training. It took me a short 13 months to make it through the 6-month block of training. I had some injuries along the way. But in my time in the SEAL teams, I have 10 total deployments. 7 of those were to combat. I was a sniper instructor. I was actually teaching sniper school when 9/11 happened. That was interesting. I was the senior instructor, not the senior guy, and this is sort of another thing about leadership, is I was a senior instructor at sniper school. I was not the senior man. And then we watched these planes fly into the Twin Towers. And all these guys that are senior to me, they turn to me and they're like, what are we gonna do? I have no idea. Wait. So I called back to headquarters and I said, hey, what do we need to do? Do we need to like pack up and go to New York, help with the recovery effort? Is there anything gonna happen? What do we do? What's going on? And so my chain of command said, continue training. You're gonna need those skills later on. And so soon after that, we started deploying to Afghanistan and then later to Iraq. I'm also so after I retired, I have a couple of companies that I've started. Ones that I'm running right now are Naked Warrior Recovery. It's a CBD company. Our mission, and I'll talk about mission in a little bit, is 22 to 0. 22 veterans take their lives every single day. We've lost more veterans to suicide than we have in 20 years of sustained combat in 2 theaters of war. I'll get better at saying that someday. So our mission is 22 to 0 to eliminate veteran suicide. CBD was a modality that helped me turn down the noise in my head. And it was something that helped me figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do now. So I sell CBD products. And you know, once upon a time I was like, I don't wanna be in sales at all. I don't have any desire to stand on a stage and speak. Who wants to hear what I have to say? I have no desire to coach anyone in any way, shape, or form. Now that's all I want to do. I want to sell CBD, I want to stand on stage and speak, and I want to coach people. And so that's what I'm doing now. But it was a process to get there. It was leadership, successes, and failures that got me where I am today. So I have slides. So I have not practiced this at all. I put it together this week, more or less. I've talked about all the things that I'm going to talk about at one point or another, kind of in the general fashion that I'm going to present them to you today, but I have not practiced at all. As a matter of fact, I got Jeff my slides like 5 minutes before we started. Not to freak Jeff out at all. Okay, so like I said, I have a few deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. One of the cool things about, so the bottom center picture there is, you know, me and 40 other guys doing some training, and Nevada looks a whole lot like Afghanistan. I remember the first time I went to Afghanistan, came back, so it was 2003, there were these rocks along the side of the road, and they were painted red on one side and white on the other side. And so that just meant that the NATO had come through and they'd cleared the road to make sure that there were no IEDs along the road or landmines from when the Russians were in Afghanistan. And so I come back from that deployment and we're doing a workup and we go out to Nevada, to Hawthorne, Nevada to do some training, mobility training, driving around, driving off-road, things like that. And I'm looking around and I'm like, I feel like I'm in Afghanistan. It looks exactly like Afghanistan. And then I'm like, where are the red and white rocks? Like, do I not drive off-road? I'm a little scared right now. I eventually got over it. Eventually we became very good at what we did, deployed again, and we did some good work overseas. I've been fortunate enough to jump out of airplanes and do some cool stuff. The cool thing about jumping out of an airplane, who here has ever gone skydiving? Anybody? Rebecca, for sure? Really? Come on. Anybody? Anybody else? Did you get to jump on your own? Tandem? Whoa. Tandem, okay, check. So a cool thing about jumping out of an airplane is there are leadership lessons involved in jumping out of an airplane. And when I went to Army Airborne School, which you would think sounds pretty cool, it's not. Because they teach you, this is what they teach you. The great thing about the Army is they teach to the lowest common denominator. They have standards. They are here. Great people, though. But one of the things that they would tell us is once you step out of that airplane, you are your own canopy commander. So I'll refer to the word commander several times throughout this presentation, and that's just you're in charge of yourself. You're just a person in charge. And when you jump out of an airplane, and you open up your parachute, or it opens up behind you. Oh, going back to Army jump school, it was 3 weeks of learning how to fall down. I kid you not. You get in this sawdust pit. It's in Georgia in the summertime. There's a little bit of humidity, a little bit of heat, and you're wearing like full camouflage uniform, and you draw a circle in the sawdust pit. You stand in the middle of that sawdust pit, and then it's like, okay, jump forward and to the left. And you jump forward and to the left, and then you fall down. And then you stand up, get back in the middle of the circle, jump forward and to the right, and fall down. So you learn how to fall down for 3 weeks straight until they let you step out of an airplane. And then later on, you learn how to jump out, and you can pull your own parachute, your own ripcord to open your own parachute. But when you're under that canopy, and you're flying down to land on the drop zone, everything that happens, you're in charge. You're in charge of how you land on the ground. And you may think like, oh, I'm coming in for a landing, and this happened to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm coming in for a landing, and the wind shifted one time, 90 degrees. And I'm about 15 feet off the deck, and then I'm like, oh, that's bad. And then my parachute collapsed, and I fell. I was doing like 25 knots forward, and then all of a sudden, my canopy collapsed, and down I came. So that was kind of a hard landing. That was not that much fun, but I was in charge of how I landed. Going back to that 3 weeks of learning how to fall down. Like, oh, you better figure that out real quick. I fast roped onto submarines. This is pretty cool. I've never enjoyed being on a submarine. I like being on the outside of the submarine, maybe even when it's underwater, it's pretty cool. Being inside the submarine is never cool. This is also a submarine. This is a submarine. It's called the SEAL Delivery Vehicle. We use this in the team that I retired out of in Hawaii. And it's pretty cool. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about leadership-wise come from being underwater. I'm going to talk about communication. I'm going to talk about movement. It's very difficult to communicate underwater. So you have to, and I was talking to someone earlier about always coming back to the basics of leadership, the basics of everything that you do. If you don't have a solid foundation of basics, then you're setting yourself up for failure. People like to be very complex. These are very complex undersea operations. They're so complex, and the margin of error is so big or so small that the missions are approved by the President of the United States, the missions that we do at this team. And these are some of the presidents that I worked for while I was on active duty. So we're going to talk about 5 Navy SEAL secrets of leadership. And again, these are principles that apply to pretty much anything that you do in your life. Whether you're dating, you're married, you're a parent, you have a gigantic company, a very small company, it doesn't matter. These 5 secrets, principles, whatever they are, will apply. And they look something like this. So this is what they call in sales the silent overwhelm. Like, what the fuck is that? Stacey, is it okay if I swear?
Yes,
every now and then.
good. Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. So these are the 5 SEAL secrets, and I'll kind of go over them real quickly. But and I'll send this to you as well, so you can be like, look, this is how you lead right here. This is it. Okay, so what I like to talk about is a failure that I see most leaders make. Even at the highest level, I see them make. How many people here are good at multitasking? Anybody else good at multitasking? Okay. This is how we multitask in the SEAL teams. I'm going to use a gunfight to illustrate a lot of what I'm talking about, because those are things that I've practiced most of my career. And so in a gunfight, there's 3 things you have to do very, very, very well. You have to be able to shoot, you have to be able to move, and you have to be able to communicate. If you can't do those 3 things very, very well, it's going to be a bad day. It's going to be a long day, or a short day, depending on how it all works out. So to kind of talk you through how this works is you're walking along, minding your own business, and somebody starts shooting at you. They probably saw you coming, and they set up an ambush. You take cover, you locate the enemy, and you return fire. But it's not that simple. You take cover. Where are my guys at? Okay, check. Okay, no one stopped in front of me so I can engage the target. Are there going to be any collateral damage for me engaging the target? Yes or no? And you're doing this sort of process along the way. Okay, now you have a clear target, clear picture, you know who you're going to shoot, and you start engaging the target. Well, when you start pulling the trigger and you start engaging that target and you're terrified and the adrenaline's going up, all you're thinking about is, make him stop shooting at me. I want to go home. The next thing you have to do is you have to be able to move, and you have to be able to communicate what you're going to do. So you have to do these 3 things over and over and over to get out of the gunfight. The problem is, this is multitasking at its best. Very high-level multitasking. The point of this is you can't multitask this. You have to stop, engage the enemy. Now I need to, as a leader, I need to communicate what we're going to do. Stop shooting. I tell you the command, break right, break right! And you repeat back to me.
Break right.
That was two-way communication. That was very good. And then I turn over here, break left, break left!
Break left.
Very good. So, we have communication down. Now when it's time to move, I have to stop shooting, I have to look at where I'm going to go, and I go there. And then I stop, and I start shooting again. And then maybe we're out of the gunfight, maybe we're not, and we have to continue shooting, moving, and communicating. And the bottom line to all of this is there's no such thing as multitasking. You can only do one thing really well at a time. And to put that into kind of the corporate environment, you're a leader in your organization, you're writing an email to a client, to the team, to the whatever, and I come in and I've got a problem. Hey, I got this thing, we're gonna do the thing, and you're like, yeah, check, Roger. And you're listening to me, kinda, and you're writing your email. And then you're trying to give me feedback and you're still trying to write your email. You're not doing either one of those things very well. You're doing a half-assed job writing your email, and you're doing a half-assed job of listening to me and giving me feedback. So to multitask like a Navy SEAL is to either stop writing the email and listen to what I have to say, or say, just a minute, Stacy. Hold on, let me finish my thought here so I don't mess this up, because I'm ADD and that's just the way I am. And I need to finish writing this email. And I finish writing the email, and then I have time to talk to Stacy. So that's really what I mean by multitasking like a Navy SEAL. Again, it goes back to you're on a date, Brenda. And you decide to look at your phone and scroll because you're not that interested in whoever you're on a date with. Or you get a text message and you stop the conversation that you're having to look at your thing. Or you're having dinner with your family and everyone has their phone at the table. Shoot, move, and communicate. Shooting is delivering yourself, your service, your product, your whatever it is. The communication has to be deliberate. It has to be two-way. So if you're looking at your phone while you're at the family dinner table and not giving your attention to the people that are around you, then you're failing yourself as a leader in your family, in your relationships, in your business. So multitask like a Navy SEAL. There's no such thing as multitasking. You can only do one thing at a time, and you have to do it deliberately. Okay. Leadership lesson number 2 in the SEAL teams are leaders get no bullets. So where I got this concept from is, as a senior leader in the SEAL teams, I would have these brand new junior officers come in, and their job is to lead. And they're fired up, they just graduated SEAL training, they got their thing, and they're out there new at the team, and they're like, I'm gonna get some. I finally made it. And we put them in charge. You're in charge. and they get out there and we practice these gunfights. And the way we practice them is we practice walking along in the woods, and we have targets that pop up in the, over there somewhere, and they shoot back at us. They're just shooting like gas at us, but it's sound, it's fire that's shooting back at us. There's these targets that actually pop up, so you have something to shoot at. The training cadre, they have these remote controls where they pop them up and they outflank us and they do the things that they need to do as if we're actually fighting bad guys on the battlefield. We're shooting real bullets back at them. And the leader's job is to lead. But we have a contact right, and everyone jumps and they start pointing right and they start engaging the targets. One guy's looking to the left just in case they set up a target behind us. And that leader is looking down the sights of his gun and he's engaging the target. And me as a senior leader, my job is to train my replacement. My job as a leader is to train my replacement. I've done this 1,000 times. I know what calls to make. I know where to lead the team. I know what the enemy is doing. I'm like, okay, check. I do my assessment of the battlefield. But I position myself as a senior leader as a new guy. I don't know anything. Next to the new leader. And I position myself there because I want to observe what they're doing and I want to help them out if they need help. 1,000% of the time, those new leaders contact left, start engaging the target, they take cover, they do the thing they're supposed to do, boom, 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 boom. Are you going to lead? So I let them shoot the targets a few times, maybe 1 or 2 runs, but I'll also be there shooting alongside them and say, what's the call? What are we doing? How do we do it? We need to get out of here. And I slowly increase the stress that they're receiving because they're shooting and they're like, oh, I have to make a decision. And they start looking around and then they decide they want to shoot again because they don't know what call to make. So 2, 3 runs that goes and we give them feedback. Okay, stop shooting. Well, guess what? They like shooting because it's fun. And so the next run, I take their bullets away. You get no bullets. Leaders get no bullets. So again, remember, the things that you have to do are shoot, move, and communicate to get out of that gunfight. The leader should not be shooting. The leader should be leading. And the way you lead is not shoot. You look at the terrain as a leader. You train your team to shoot, move, and communicate. But as a leader, your job is to lead. So your job is to identify where the enemy is. Identify where your team is. Identify what the terrain features are around you. And then make a decision. And then once the leader is starting to make those decisions, he's looking around, he's observing the terrain, he's looking at the team, and if he's being slow, when I see him actually doing what he's supposed to do, trying to figure out the battlefield, I'll say something like, what do you think about that hillside right there? What if we went behind it and over the top? There's a call for that. He knows what the call is. So he'll think about it, he'll process it, and then he'll make the call. And then once the call is made, the word gets passed up and down the line, and then we start making that maneuver. But if that leader is shooting, he's never able to make that call. He's never able to see the terrain that's out there. The same thing is true in business, in family, in leadership. If you're busy, like hitting the streets, doing all the sales, doing all the everything, if you're all in it, if you're in your business, you're not able to see what's going on around you. You're not able to see the issues, the problems that are happening in your organization. You're not able to see what's going on with your family. You have to be able to step back, not engage the enemy directly. Now, there are times where a leader does need to shoot. Like if there's like nothing happening on the battlefield and people are up and moving. Now the bad guys, their heads are up. Okay, well, me as a leader, now I need to put a few rounds downrange to make sure the enemy keeps their heads down so my guys can move and start shooting again so that I can start doing my maneuvers and figuring out what else is happening on the battlefield. So Rule number 1 is multitask like a Navy SEAL. Shoot, move, and communicate. Rule number 2 is leaders get no bullets. You should not be shooting. You need to be leading. If you're shooting, you're not leading. Rule number 3 is OODA loop. Has anyone here ever heard of this? Couple people. Okay, so this was a concept that was developed by an Air Force colonel in Vietnam. And this is something that we all do kind of naturally, intuitively, but this guy formalized the process. It's 4 steps, and you just keep doing them over and over and over. This is just the basic decision-making process, but this is something that works on the battlefield, it works on the business field, it works in life. So OODA loop is observe what's going on around you. Orient yourself to whatever the thing is that you need to take action on. Decide what you're going to do, and then act. Take action. And from that action, there's going to be a result. So then you have to observe the result, orient yourself to the result, whatever that is, decide what you're going to do about that result, and then take more action. And you keep doing this over and over. That's why it's a loop. I was showing the slide to someone the other day, and they're like, what is the loop part of it? Oh, I see. You just keep doing it over and over. And you do this when you're driving. You do this with your family. You do this in your business. You have a toxic employee. What do you do with them? You call Brenda. But before you do that, you have to observe what they're doing.
With the drone.
You have to drown. You run out of money because they're toxic. You orient yourself to what you need to do. You make a decision, and then you act. So that's OODA loop. And this is something that we do on the battlefield all the time. Observe, okay, we moved the team over here. We've gotten out of, what do we need to do next? As you move in business, as you maneuver in leadership from one place to another, you're going to have a different perspective of what the battlefield looks like. As you make decisions in your family, you're going to have a different perspective of what's going on with your relationships. So you have to continue to do this observe, orient, decide, and act, this OODA loop. And it goes on pretty much forever until you stop making decisions. SEAL lesson number 3 is commander's intent. I told you in the beginning that I'll say commander a few times while we're going through this presentation. So a commander is anyone that is in leadership. But in this particular case, I'll make it to be more like a business. Most businesses have a mission statement of some sort. What is the mission statement of your business? You can't remember your core values, maybe you can remember your mission. To be continued. Okay, you have a business.
Yes.
What is your mission?
I don't have one.
No mission at all.
None.
You're just like, I have a company and I don't do anything.
Well, I know what I want to do with it.
What do you want to do with it?
Make a ton of money.
What else? Other than make a ton of money. What is your business?
IT security.
Okay, so there's a mission in there to be the best IT security, whatever, on the planet, preventing China and North Korea and Russia from hacking every computer in the world. Something like that?
Yeah, I'm not going to take that on.
I mean, we can, okay, but you can scale that
Yeah.
mission statement. So you're in IT security, so you have a mission
Yeah.
of preventing hackers from getting into IT infrastructure.
I wouldn't phrase it that way, but yeah, that's good enough for now.
Phrase it. Let's hear it.
So to have a business be able to function regardless of whether they're attacked or not.
Okay.
You can't stop cyber attacks. You can't stop.
That's a defeatist mindset.
No, you
We'll
can't.
work on that. That's where you're OODA looping, always. Oh, they found a new way in.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to do this to prevent them from getting in.
Well, we do remediation.
Okay.
So we do everything, restore everything in a few minutes.
So you let them get in and then you
No, we
save
s-
it. And
To the degree that we can, we do everything we can to stop it, but eventually someone's going to find a back door. There's
sure.
just- there's-
And then you close that back door and then you close the next one and the next one. Okay, so the commander's intent is I have an IT company and I want to prevent as much as possible anyone from hacking my organization, hacking my stuff. It's going to happen, but I'm going to continue doing that. Commander's intent gives the So a company hires you to do that. I want you to make sure it doesn't happen. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I just know that I want this result. So commander's intent is, I don't care how you do it, I just want the result. Actually, I do care how you do it, as long as you stay inside of these parameters. You can't do anything illegal, immoral, or unethical. And it goes with relationships. I don't care what you're doing with whoever or whatever, as long as you're not doing things that are illegal, moral, or unethical in those relationships, in your family, in your business, with your employees. You give your employees direction. Go do something. Go do this thing. As long as it falls in between these parallels, this left and right boundary, I don't really care how you get it done. I don't care when you get it done, as long as it's done by this time. You can work on it right now, or you can work on it at the last minute. Get it done. And those boundaries can be as wide or as narrow as you, as the leader, dictate. And then the last one is decentralized command and control. So this came up a lot. I did a speaking engagement with Tom Zig Ziglar's son, a few months ago. And before the engagement, the guy that put it on, he wanted to see if there was any synergy between what Tom was putting out and what I was putting out. And Tom asked me the question, like, how do you, with COVID and everyone remote working and things like that, how do you train your people what do you in the SEAL teams do to let people work remotely like that? How do you train them? What do you do? And I said, I would say, hold there, move left, hold right. And I would kind of be like a road guard. I'd be that cop that's out there like moving traffic around. It was a traffic cop. And what we learned is that's the most inefficient way to run an organization. If we want speed on our side, I need to train my junior leaders, I need to train my personnel on how to do the job and how to do it without me telling them what to do. So when you do that, you take a great amount of risk. So there's this risk security sort of scenario. So I can go into combat and I can not wear body armor. I can move a lot faster. But if I get into a really good gunfight, when they're really good at shooting, I'm sure wish I had body armor on. But up until that point, I was super happy to move around the battlefield as quickly and efficiently as I could until I got into the gunfight. So there's pros and cons, but as a leader, what we learned is when we go into buildings, I train everyone else on how to do it, on how to make decisions, on how to do that OODA loop. And they go into whatever room they want to, as long as it makes sense, as long as it's inside the left and right boundaries of what we need to do. And at some point, if they get too far ahead or too excited, I might have to pull them back. But I like to call it controlled chaos. Ready, set, execute. And they just go and they do. And they report back when they've accomplished the mission or whatever piece of the mission, or if they need help. I may have like 4 or 5 teams out there. Oh yeah, I forgot to put my slide up. 4 or 5 teams out there, and they're sending out people, little teams from their team. You know, we're somewhere in some country, and I am leading them. I might not even be on the battlefield. I might be back at the headquarters, and I say, ready, go, execute. And they go out, and the junior leaders say, okay, I need you guys to go over there. I'm going to stay here. And then they are also in comms with other leaders on the battlefield, other teams on the battlefield. So they're not relying on me as the leader to tell them what to do. They know what to do, they know what the commander's intent is, they know what the mission is, and they go execute it. And when they need help, they call back. Or, hey, we're done, do we have a follow-on mission? Or, hey, it's not working out that well, what do we need to do? And so we provide direction after that. But in the execution of the operation, I don't need to tell anyone what to do. Everyone knows what to do. In your family, you know what to do. In your business, people know what to do if you've trained them. If you train them from the most basic level to the most advanced level. And this is something that has nothing to do with decentralized command and control that I was talking to a little bit earlier, is when we come back from these deployments and we're doing these super complex operations, we'll come back and we'll start over, and we'll start at the very basic level. We'll do this whole training scenario all over again where we do a workup to deploy again, but every time we come back, we start back and we work on the basics. And the basics of leadership and the basics of how you're going to do your job and what is expected of you are the things that we focus on. And that's really what leadership is all about. So in my 5 SEAL secrets of leadership, I told you would understand this at the end. You need to be able to multitask like a Navy SEAL. The bottom line is there's no such thing as multitask. Leaders get no bullets. If you're a leader, you should not be shooting, you need to be leading. Do the old OODA loop, because if it works in the military, it can work in every other aspect of your life. Have your commander's intent, and embrace the decentralized command and control. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.